Whether you're feeling a little bit behind on all things AI or you're looking to understand where it's headed, this is a great episode for you. Jennifer Dawkins from True Marketing is joining us, and she just attended MACON last week. That's the Marketing AI conference. And she'll be recapping what she heard in the keynotes, her big takeaways, her favorite sessions, and some new tools that she's excited about. Let's do this.
Welcome to Content Marketing Engineered, your source for building trust and generating demand with technical content. Here is your host, Wendy Covey.
Hi, and welcome to Content Marketing Engineered. On each episode, I'll break down an industry trend, challenge, or best practice in reaching technical audiences. You'll meet colleagues, friends, and clients of mine who will stop by to share their stories. And I hope that you leave each episode feeling inspired and ready to take action. Before we jump in, I'd like to give a brief shout out to my agency, True Marketing. True is a full-service agency located in beautiful Austin, Texas, serving highly technical companies. For more information, visit truemarketing.com. And now, on with our podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Content Marketing Engineered. I'm joined today by Jennifer Dawkins. She is a Vice President of Account Services at True Marketing, and she is fresh back from Cleveland, where she attended MACON 2024. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you, Wendy. Glad to be here.
Can't believe it's been a few days now you've been back and we haven't talked. I'm dying for this conversation to hear everything you learned at MACON. There's so much to cover. So Jen, for those who've never heard of MACON and don't know what it is, what does MACON stand for?
It is the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Conference. And so it is everything AI. It's been growing really fast. And this time it was a pretty significant. I had about 1,500 people, 55 speakers, 2 full days, plus additional day of workshops. And yeah, it was great.
So I can't imagine being in Paul Reitzer and Kathy McPhillips' chair in their seat and thinking, okay, how do we kick off this event? How do we bring everybody up to speed and give them the context they need to go through this conference and to just, be current? So how did they do that? How did they kick it off?
So the opening keynote talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that I thought was the most helpful was really kind of putting this all in a timeline. Just putting, we know that we started hearing about this a lot in end of 2022, and we know that a ton has happened since then, and it's been moving so fast. So Paul really went through and talked through the timeline of where we are right now, where we're going, how fast it's going. So let me walk through the timeline a little bit here because I think it'll help give some context to some of the other things that I'm sharing about the show. So this year, kind of this 2024, what we've really seen is significant advancements in LLM technology. So basically getting the language part of these, chat functions and all of the AI, the generative AI, is really around the developments around the language, something that you can talk to, talks back to you. And that is what is kind of been perfected, I guess, this year. Starting very soon, next year, what he predicts is that that'll be the explosion of multimodal. So in addition to language, it'll be able to do the same things with video, with imagery. And I know that it's doing it today, but we've all seen the funny examples of, that it doesn't do it exactly right. And it's going to get really good at that. And so once it does, that kind of opens the door for a whole lot of different types of uses for this. So that's something coming next year, or kind of perfecting next year. He kept calling them the explosions. So kind of once it's, you pilot it and you do this, and once it's perfected, it's being, used everywhere in this kind of explosion. So multimodal, but then also the agents. So they talked a lot about AI agents. So where the generative AI is a lot about language, the agents is about action. So you can not only interact with it, but it will go do things for you, kind of go off and, based on things that you set, it understands you, it sees this, and then it goes out and takes action.
Could you give me a practical example of what an action would be?
Sure. So there were some kind of lead users there that were talking that are already using this model, and it's not perfect, but they're already using this model of what they call their virtual doppelganger. So going out and, some of these people had inboxes that were entirely manned by their assistant, their virtual doppelganger. And it can go out, it can respond, it can go attend Zoom meetings for them, it can get something in and take action based on it that doesn't require the intervention of a human if you don't want to have that. So that is kind of one example of that. And so these agents are people that you can basically put in your place. You can send someone to a meeting for you. You can have someone take an action for you, and it kind of acts on your behalf. A sort of a creepy version of this was actually having this agent do a video and be you. So kind of mimic your movements and mimic your voice. And I'm sure that next year and the year after, it'll get good enough to where it's less creepy. But right now it was really like strange, and it looked like the person, but not exactly. And just something was wrong, but you couldn't put your finger on it. So that's some examples. And of course, lead users are doing it today, but this will be something that's just widespread. And you hear a lot about like Copilot, and it's already being called that, kind of in the anticipation of it really will be far more useful in the future than it is today.
So remember that old saying, this is, I think, back in the 80s, it was like, I'll have my people call your people. And it's
It really will do that, but they'll be robots.
There'll be robots. All right. Got it.
So that's the next phase. And then after that is where it really gets interesting. So for those of you who read a lot or listen a lot of podcasts and other things about AI, you've heard a lot about AGI. That's kind of the big thing coming of AGI stands for artificial general intelligence. So that is the real turning point. So that is the point where not only can AI speak to you, recognize patterns and repeat patterns, and not only can it recognize patterns and create its own new patterns and do actions, but it actually can innovate. It can come up with new ideas that it didn't get from its training. It can put things together and kind of apply that to something new. So that's where it gets really interesting and a little scary, because it truly is, it kind of surpasses human intelligence. That's the point. And so that is where Paul put that at 2028 to 2030. And there is a lot of discussion about this, a lot of what does that mean. There was a very famous quote from Sam Altman about once we get to that level, basically what that means is that 95% of what people hire marketers or strategists or creatives for, AI will be able to do that instantly, nearly free. That's just one opinion, but it was definitely a quote that reverberated throughout every session pretty much. I mean, it's definitely on people's mind that that's the point where things get really interesting and life and work really changes.
Mic drop.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sure a lot of the conversation also had to do with creativity versus being able to quickly absorb and problem solve based on information that's out there. I have a feeling we're going to probably get to that. But is that the balance to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there wasn't a, there wasn't a, this is going to take over everything and there'll be no need for us. There was no discussion or anything around that. It is that this is happening and this is going to change everything. And we have to get ready for it. It doesn't mean that we won't have marketing jobs anymore. It just means that our marketing jobs are going to be very different. I mean, just like when the internet came out. I mean, the internet came and changed everything. And we still had jobs. But we had completely different jobs. I mean, it was, and this is on that scale, except for it's happening much, much faster than that happened. So it's, that was a lot of the discussion on what is the role and what does it mean for us as far as what great things can we do better, what things can we do more efficiently, and then there are definitely things that we just won't do at all. There was one speaker that he was talking about pivot tables, and he was like, and for those of you guys that don't know what pivot tables are, just don't worry about it. It's too late. Like, it's done. You don't need to learn that. We have things that are going to do that for you. If you haven't learned it, you're not going to. So
you don't need to. We've already been taking advantage of, loading in raw research and having it analyze things, giving it charts and graphs and summaries. It's been a wonderful shortcut, big value add. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I know you attended a lot of sessions over the time that you were there. Tell
Mhm.
me about some of the big takeaways that you had.
All right. So I think the number one takeaway was really this is happening. Like, there is no getting around it. There is no, like, maybe I can ignore it. This is happening. And it is an absolute must that every organization figure out their game plan for it and make sure that there is AI literacy throughout the organization and find their use cases and start embracing it. So we had a lot of speakers. We had someone from Forrester come up, and they talked about, right now, if people out there are like, oh, I haven't started doing this, what am I going to do? There's, a lot of people haven't. It said about 45% of the people they surveyed, and this is their state of AI report that they put out, and about 45% of people said they didn't know what a prompt engineering is or how to use it. 53% of people said on the flip side that they feel confident about this. So we are still kind of in this half and half. So it's not like if you haven't done it yet, you're way behind and you'll never catch up. But the message was really clear that this is going really fast. And now's the time. Like, you've got to start now, and you've got to start figuring it out. You've got to start, what is your game plan? Where can you benefit from this? Where does it make sense? Where does it not make sense? And what are your guidelines and what are your rules? There was probably 5 different sessions solely around scaling this and growing adoption within your organization and best practices for doing that. And so that's definitely something that came through loud and clear. So that was the first one of just, this is not optional. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. You're going to have to do this. That was the first one.
Before you go on to the second one,
Yeah.
I think back to the slow adoption that a lot of manufacturers and small industrial companies had with just having a website that was robust and had content on it. I mean, like, so far behind the general public. And I expect that there's a lot of sticking the head in the sand sort of things going on when it comes to AI and adopting that into business. And instead they're trying to just, we can put that off. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but let's be real. We've worked with a lot of these companies, and as innovative as they are on the engineering side, when it comes to the business side, they're laggards. So I think it's really important that we emphasize this. And I had a Mary Gypsy on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and she's in her 20s. And I asked her what she thought about those organizations that didn't adopt AI. And she said, oh, like, to me, if my company said I couldn't use it, it would be like cutting off an appendage. And this is what people are going to think, that you're trying to recruit to work at your company, that you're cutting off your right arm, whatever.
Yeah. That was an interesting point of, they said that if you're thinking that, no, we don't use it or we can't use it or whatever your stance is, people at your company are using it. So that was another thing of just knowing that this is life. This is how it is. And yes, definitely young people, but really everybody, they're using it. And so embracing it and making sure that they're using it in the way that you want them to and for the right use cases, and being really careful with sensitive data. These are areas where that's, it's not just you're going to get behind, but it's also you're going to lose control of your ship if you're not steering where you want employees to go, because they are going to be using it. Humans are using this right now. And the adoption curve is so fast. Like, it's not like the internet, where the internet was kind of around, I mean, for probably 5 to 7 years before it was like everywhere. And this is not this. I mean, we see what has already happened in the last year, and next year it's just going to go faster and faster and faster. So you don't have time to sit around for several years being like, no, not for us. And then by the time you realize that it has to be for you, your competitors are going to be so far ahead of you and everything that they're doing, and not just in marketing, and across the entire business.
Okay. All right. So what were some takeaways for content?
Yes. So that was going to be my second one. So, the content is near and dear to me. I live and breathe that. I've dealt with content my entire career. I've seen so many changes happening over that time period with content. And we've kind of been in this wonderful inbound world for like the last decade or more of, there's just, the more content that you put out there, the better your SEO is going to be. It's all going to come to you, and that's all you have to do. And it's been kind of easy and nice and lovely. And really now, there's AI and people can put out generic content at a lightning speed, and you can't scale. You can't scale with that much content. And the way people are searching for content, we talked about that before, is very different. So it's being served up to them. It's not, digging through pages and pages of links anymore. It's asking a question, you get an answer, and, there might be a source or there might not, but it's mostly pulling and staying there. So one of the big takeaways, and I saw this across so many sessions, is generic Me Too content is not going to cut it. Like you will get no eyes on your content. You're not going to get the SEO that you used to get. It's not going to stand out. There's still absolutely a place for content, but it's going to have to be something that is adding to the body of work. It is going to have to be something that has a point of view. It has to be something that truly stands out. It can't be this, the what is content that has been ranking so well in search. It might still be ranking today. Some of the people who got really good SEO, you might still be seeing the success from that. A year from now, you won't be. And a lot of people have already seen it. I mean, across the board, we had speakers say we have 40% drop on our traffic last year. We had, 25% drop in our traffic. We're all seeing it. And so the message that I heard over and over is you can't just keep doing the same things. You have to have really compelling content. It has to be something that is worthwhile. So they talked about some of the types of content that are going to go away first, or already have started going away, are the fact-based, a lot of the what is, the simple answers, because that's what AI is really good at. Like if you want to say, hey, I need a guacamole recipe, you ask AI, you get one guacamole recipe, it's there. You ask Google search, you get ads and 1,000 links, and what type do you want? You can also go immediately with the chatbot and ask questions. If it gets you a recipe and it's spicy, you're like, no, I don't like spicy. Give me one without jalapenos. And then you get a new one, and it serves it up. So any of those simple answers, AI's got that. Like, don't spend your time writing content on this. It won't go anywhere. It might get scraped, but your name won't.
When people don't care who the source is, like, guacamole
That's a great point.
recipes are pretty standard, right? The standard base. And of course, there's a little twist to them. But, right, the same with technical content. If it's sort of generic, it's the same standard definition. They don't care who the source is.
It's nothing new. It's nothing unique. It's not proprietary.
Right.
So one of the speakers said it well, and he said, write content that AI can't write. So that's emotions, feelings, personal anecdotes, your experiences. AI can't tell a story about when this happened to you. They can't elicit an emotional response yet, maybe next year. So case studies, service, information about your services and your products. So this was an interesting, when you compare the traffic that's gone away, it's not probably, most cases, it's not your core pages, it's not your service pages, it's the blogs, it is this top of funnel, it is this what is stuff that you are doing to get the SEO. So your service pages, your case studies, there's definitely an opportunity to put more into those. And then when you are writing the top of the funnel content, there's absolutely a place for thought leadership, but it needs to be true thought leadership. So something that is a unique take, something that is a little provocative, something that people might not expect, or, challenging a commonly held belief, on mundane things, not highly controversial things. But someone was talking about how their top performing post was how they said PDFs were the rust of the internet and don't belong anywhere on the internet. And there's like a blew up and all these, so controversial takes on mundane topics, not on something that's really big.
All right. What else, Jen?
All right. So the third takeaway that feels worth talking about is the importance of trust. So just like me, the whole time I was there, I went back and forth between like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, and oh God, that's a little scary, and oh, that's kind of ick, and oh, it's amazing. So I went kind of back and forth. So there is excitement, but a lot of distrust around AI right now. So we're kind of in a trust deficit across the board. And so finding ways to be transparent, making sure that how you're collecting and using data is aligned with the expectations, and you're sharing that, and you're showing how you're using AI. When you have your virtual assistant responding to emails, make sure people know that they're not talking to you, that they're talking to a virtual assistant, or if you used AI to help create something, make sure that's transparent. So that's really important. AI helps you do a lot of really cool things with data, and you could get hyper personalized if you want. And so just kind of walking that line between like what's delightful and awesome that you knew that about me and what's creepy that you knew that about me, just making sure that you're kind of like just thinking of that. There was a session that talked about how young people are much more aware of this, and they're worried about how their data is being used. And they said that 42% of 18 to 24-year-olds have exercised their data protection privacy rights. So basically went in and asked somebody, hey, I want you to remove all of my data. Yeah, and anyone can do that. It's the young people though that are doing it far more than any other age group. They're interested in it, they care. And on the flip side, if you do build trust with somebody, and if you're a brand that they trust and you're a person that they trust, they'll give you a lot of information. Like, it's not that people are worried about sharing information. They're worried about their information being shared with somebody that is going to do something with it that isn't what they want, or that they don't trust, or they don't know. And a good point that was brought up there too is, in addition to you having your own policies, really understanding and knowing your AI vendor policies as well. Because you could be a very trustworthy company with a lot of integrity. If you don't know what the tools you're using with the data, and you're not certain that that's also locked down, then that can kind of help erode trust, which you don't want to do.
Okay. And boy, with all of the fine print on these terms and conditions that we sign every day for that new app subscription, it's tough to figure that out. So I, shy of reading the fine print of everything, at least doing a generative AI search to get the high points might be good, and find a way to wade through that and know what you're getting yourself into, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Did you guys talk at all about what content is considered yours, your copyrighted content, and what is not considered copyrighted based on whether or not you use AI and to what extent?
Yep. There was actually a couple sessions, and one of the main sessions on the big stage was about this, where they had multiple different lawyers, and it was very focused on B2B specifically, which I think is good.
Yeah.
So I guess the Cliff Notes version is that copyrights, anything that you write is automatically copyrighted. You don't have to apply for anything. It's not like a trademark. It's automatically copyrighted. And that protects you from other people using it. So you kind of have exclusive right. Something that is created with AI cannot be copyrighted. So if you create an image from AI, that image is wholly created with with AI, that is not your image. You can't copyright it. Anyone else can use it. And copyright also covers derivative works. So if you create something and something is derived from it, from an AI, you're still protected there. So that is kind of important. And if you use AI to help brainstorm, but you're doing the bulk of the writing and it's still your kind of thought, that is still protected, but it's kind of a gray area. So they talked about, if you have something that is really like your special sauce, something that's really important to your business, our research is something that I would kind of put in that category. That is something that you definitely want to be careful how much AI involvement is there. And you want to keep records, notes, some sort of way to document that really is yours, and it is not something that is derived from other sources or created from AI. And so that's really important. This is going to change. There's a lot of court cases out there right now about this. There's a lot of legislation that has already been passed. AI is mentioned in hundreds of court cases right now. So these things will evolve, but right now that's where we are. One of the speakers told an interesting story about when the camera first came out. Pictures taken with a camera couldn't be copyrighted because it was created by the machine. And so they kind of went and proved through court cases that there was a lot of individual human creativity in creating those. And then, of course, now we know that images and photographs can be copyrighted and are copyrighted. And so this could be the same thing, because we know that, like, if you type in a simple couple sentences and it spits out something, of course that's not how most people are using AI. They're iterating, they're getting a draft and they're working on it and they're like, what about this? And they're doing very elaborate prompts that are, so there could be a point that that could be copyrighted, but right now it's not. And there's, we're figuring that out, and it's going to take a while, and undoubtedly it'll end up going up to the Supreme Court and some big decisions will be made, but we're years off from that, and we're going really fast, and so much is going to happen before those things are decided.
Yeah. I like how you talked about this iterative process where most people aren't saying, hey, write this for me,
Right.
but brainstorming and iterating, and that's the best practice, right? And I was just at a Women in Electronics Leadership Summit last week, and I was presenting on personal branding, and we talked about defining your personal brand and then writing content around the brand. And there were some people, that confessed they were just handing it over, right? ChatGPT, write me a post about whatever. And we discussed how you can do that, but first you need to create that doppelganger and train it to sound like you and look like you. And even then feed it your point of view and the interesting information that you want to post about. So the writing part's kind of the easy piece of the list. It's all of the other stuff that makes it uniquely yours. And so I kind of posed to them, are you saving time? Are you working more efficiently? Did it get you out of writer's block? Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So you had mentioned saving time, and I kind of expected to go to this conference and having everyone talk about, this is how I save time. This is how I did this faster. This is how, and they did, of course. But what I thought was the most interesting sessions were the ones that were absolutely not about saving time. They were talking about doing things better or deeper. That is, to me, what is far more interesting than doing things really quick. Obviously, it's doing things quick helps you be able to have more time to do these other things. Yeah. But some of the new things that I learned there were around using AI tools to not increase efficiency, but find deficiencies or improve the process, or gap analysis. So one example of this was somebody used, so there's a long process, so I don't want to simplify that they just used it to evaluate their website, which they did. They first created and fed it very deep personas, who their personas are, what they cared about. They iterated with their tool about their personas. And then once they had their personas, once they had their company messaging and value proposition and all of that, once the AI tool that they were using was armed with all of those things, they really could go deep and evaluate their core pages on their site, these service pages, the selling pages, the ones that people convert on the most, that traffic isn't going down to. They evaluated how they're doing on those sites based on all of this information. And they pointed out areas where they maybe weren't going far enough, or they had messages that weren't aligned. They gave specific suggestions of what to do. So that was really cool. Kind of in the same vein, someone else used it for gap analysis, kind of feeding in. These are all the content pieces we have, not just on their site, but out in other places. And it kind of helped identify some of the gap analysis. So obviously that is saving time, because that would have taken a lot of time to do. But that was something that to me was more compelling than it summarized my notes. It actually did something. It's looking without your bias of, oh, I love this page. This paragraph is really pretty. I love this image. And it says, no, but your messages aren't there, and you're not consistent here, and this voice is different. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Okay, so Jen, I'm sure you were exposed to a lot of new tools or tools we were already aware of. I know there were some exhibitors there. What did you like? What did you gravitate towards? What did you learn?
Okay, so yes, there's so many tools out there, and there's a lot of tools that we already know about, that were talked about and that were there. And those tools are great: Jasper and Writer and Market Muse, and of course ChatGPT, which I think most of us are using. But I want to talk about some of the tools I didn't know about before that I thought were pretty cool. So one of them was Descript, which I think everyone but me knows about, because it's something that it is not new. But when I saw it, so it's basically video editing, but you can do it like you're editing a Word doc. So if you want to edit something out, you kind of just remove the words and it takes it out of the video really seamlessly. So I felt like magic to me. I thought that was just
sound like magic.
So great. So I love that one. Poe was one. And so this is where you can pull up several different of the chatbots and kind of see the different answers and different ones, which would kind of be helpful because I think we've learned that there's certain ones that are better at summarizing versus doing a short snippet or pulling from your own content versus kind of going out. And so you can kind of see the difference across the board, which we've used for that reason. But what I didn't think about is that we're very soon going to need to be tracking mentions or traffic or, how our clients are showing up in all of these AI tools across the board, not just Google, since more and more people are moving away and using these other tools as their search engines. So that one was really cool. And then I know ChatHub does the same thing, chathub.gg, that we've also used to do that. And so those were really cool. And then one that it was so magical that it's worth mentioning, but it's like beyond my skill set. So it's called Make, and it is a no-code automation platform where you can basically pull in and do integrations from all these other tools and put it together to do crazy, amazing things. And so the session, like I just stopped taking notes because it was so beyond my skill level, but it was amazing what they were doing with it. Like they were integrating in like mentions at all these different sites, plugging it in with GA4, plugging it in with building workflows, and they were doing it was really incredible. And it was all kind of Make was the software that was connecting everything together.
Wow. Yeah. So
It was
a
pretty
marketing
amazing.
ops guru would be so into that.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah,
And
I
it's
hear
so
you.
cool.
I would just stop taking notes too. Just appreciate it.
Yeah, I just watched and was like, wow.
Yeah.
But I will say that like the idea of creating and saving models and templates, and there's a whole GTP code, that you can go and either buy or download for free, different code options. It's really amazing. And there's, it's obviously going to get even this Make that was way beyond my capability. It's kind of like when there was, used to build websites with HTML and then Dreamweaver came out. I mean, it's going to come where, these things are going to get easier and easier and everyone can use them. These are the super users right now that are going in and geeking out and doing all of these things. And it's pretty amazing. But yes, there was a ton of really cool, they had these product demos in the theater, lots of them with the sponsors. And they were like standing room only. Like people are so hungry for understanding, like, what are these tools? What do they do? We know they're going to be a lot of consolidation and all of them are going to make it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff.
Interesting. Man, just the idea of taking notes. I'm thinking back to, again, I was also traveling last week and they encouraged everyone to, don't have any devices on and use like pen and paper. And then you have, okay, I'm taking notes on my iPad or I'm taking pictures on my phone and then I'm going to distill later. And then you have, I'm recording the whole thing with ChatGPT and I'm going to brainstorm with it about my thoughts. And together we're going to come up with a summary. Like all these different ways to take and absorb that same information. And we could probably
they had
do this faster.
For every session, I'm assuming by AI, they had summary notes that they provided everyone. And that's what they said. They're like, we're here. We don't need to take notes. We have AI. They do this for us. I personally, it's my processing. When I write notes and I do pictures and I do arrows and I do it on a Remarkable tablet, but I do handwrite on the Remarkable tablet. So it's definitely like just how different people process. But yeah, the need to take notes is definitely gone. If it's not something that you value, if you're just trying to remember the information, and they're getting better and better. We used to laugh at the summaries that came from Zoom, but they're getting more and more accurate for sure. I mean, they still make some mistakes, but and
they still
getting
capture
better.
that personal banter at the beginning and end.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't record that.
Don't hit record yet. Exactly. Good. Well, so if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, Jen, you're stressing me out. I'm so far behind. I've been in denial. I've been the ostrich with my head in the sand. What advice do you have for this market?
Yeah, just choose one small thing. Go jump on ChatGPT. It's free. It's easy. Choose like one thing. I'm going to use this to summarize my notes, or I'm going to use this to pull out key themes, or I'm going to use this to look at a competitor website and ask it to pull out some themes. I mean, just choose something that's like not scary, not, super critical. If you get back garbage, it's fine. And just try to use it for that. And then the one thing I would definitely say is I see so much, and I've been this person like showing this of like, oh, the AI tool doesn't even know that there's 3 R's in strawberry. And the AI tool will, like, everyone wants to point out the mistakes it is making. And I did too in the beginning. And what I'm learning is that, yes, the 3 R's in strawberries, whatever, it's a weird thing. But most of the time it's because it hasn't been given enough context. It's a human problem, or it's been trained on human error information. And so if you put in one sentence and you get back garbage, consider that maybe you haven't given it enough information. Maybe it's your intern that started and you didn't give her any direction and she didn't do a great job. And try to iterate. Like if I got an answer back in Japanese once, don't know why. And I was like, hey, that's not English. And immediately they're like, you're right, I'm so sorry. Here it is in English. Like, it does weird things, but you can talk back. You can tell it what it did wrong. You can ask it to check its mistakes, and it's still not going to be perfect. But you're going to get used to using it. You're going to get used to how to find the better answers. And then when it is perfect in a couple years, you'll know how to use it, and you'll know where to use it, and you'll know where your brain actually does a better job than this, because sometimes that is the case, or some things are just, there's a lot of work that I need to do just so I get it ingrained in me and I truly know it. And I don't want to offload those tasks to AI, but there's a lot of other tasks that I totally could. And so you'll know that. So I guess it's just start trying with something low stakes, and don't stop when you get the first error or the first ridiculous thing. Just keep going. Don't give up on it, because it will be great, but it won't be great the first couple times you try it.
Yeah. And really, your career depends on you learning this. And
it really does.
Not immediately, but in the long term, absolutely.
Yep. It 100% does.
Good.
And it's going to be everything.
Oh, sorry. What would you just say?
Oh, I just said it's going to be everywhere. It's not just work. It's going to be everywhere in all of your life. And so it is definitely going to be something that you're going to have to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. How I need to start organizing my household better with this. Yeah. Haven't even gone there yet, Jen. Great point. Well, good. Well, where can people learn more and connect with you?
So I would say absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn. As far as learning more, this podcast is probably as good a place as any. We talk about AI a lot, as well as all other things having to do with marketing. Outside of this, for very AI specific, Paul's podcast, the Artificial Intelligence Show, is something that I listen to on a regular basis. Like there's so many things happening with litigation and trends, and somebody said something and some big book is coming out that's important. And that's where I learn about all of those things. There's no way I can possibly go and search and find all this. And so in kind of a quick 30-minute snippet, that's where I get some of my information. And then some of the things that bubble up and have to do with our specific audience, then we bring here and talk about here as well.
Yeah. And speaking of Paul Reitzer, he will be our keynote speaker at the 2025 Industrial Marketing Summit in late February. So just consider registering for that. Jen, I know you'll be there. I'll be there. It's going to be a good time.
Yep. Very excited.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for coming by today.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today on Content Marketing Engineered. For show notes, including links to resources, visit truemarketing.com/podcast. While there, you can subscribe to our blog and our e-newsletter and order a copy of my book, Content Marketing Engineered. Also, I would love your reviews on this podcast. So please, when you get a chance, subscribe and leave me your review on your favorite podcast subscription platform. Thanks and have a great day.